Well, I'm delighted to say I've got my former Brexit Party MEP colleague, Rupert Lowe, back on the channel today. Rupert, how are you?
Very well, Michael. You? Good to see you as always.
You too, my friend. Now, I just wanted to talk to you about this tweet that you put out, an article you did for The Express. Ignore the slurs. GB News, you say, is needed now more than ever. The BBC has failed to represent millions of people. Defund BBC has got momentum. We're now looking for a TV news source we can trust. I'm confident that GB News, you say, and Andrew Neil will deliver. Rupert, there's lots of discussion at the moment about GB News, lots of excitement, including on here on this channel. First of all, why do you think that alternative to the BBC is so badly needed now?
Well, the BBC is a state monopoly, whichever way you look at it. And if you don't pay your TV license, you end up with a criminal record and in the worst situation, in prison. And, you know, it is state monopolies have always been accepted, really since the Long Parliament, as being a very rare thing, and only rarely are they in the public interest. And I think the original BBC was set up actually on, it was a levy on the sale of wireless sets that paid for it. It didn't start off as a state monopoly. So I think what we've seen is this progression where the BBC has become, unlike the Reithian principles, where it was supposed to be completely impartial, it was supposed to inform, educate, and entertain. It doesn't do any of those things anymore, and it certainly isn't impartial. So I think we've now got a state-sponsored monopoly, which is not fit for purpose and which needs basically to be changed. And it's disappointing to me that, you know, our great leaders, or not so great leaders, whichever way you look at it, have chosen not to show the red card to the BBC and tell them that they're on a pathway to effectively self-funding rather than this ridiculous license fee, which I think is just going up to £159. So my view is the BBC is deficient. They're not doing what they were supposed to do originally. And we've now got a massive opportunity for, and there are several people who are looking to set up new channels, but I think GB News is going to be the winner. I'm very happy that it's now funded. I don't think any of us know what their content is going to be. I have the highest regard for Andrew Neil. I love watching his interviews. I think they are pithy, they are punchy, they deliver what's necessary, they expose incompetence, they expose general sort of deficiencies of our leaders. As we know, Boris didn't have the bottle to actually appear in a debate with Andrew Neil. And I think it's fantastic he's leading it. It's great it's funded. And I was prompted really to write this article because the criticisms and the slurs have already started before anybody knows what GB News is going to be doing. So I think they've got a huge opportunity to give us what we need, which is impartial news and information on which we can base our own judgments. That's ultimately what the BBC should have been doing. We don't want, you know, the metropolitan elite's view on everything. We want the pure news, and then we can make the judgments. And I think there's a huge need now for GB News, and I will be doing everything in my power to support their development, and hopefully they will flourish.
I mean, something that's gone a bit under the radar, Rupert, was a poll done by YouGov on the 4th of January this year, which I've highlighted on my channel, but it's pretty much been ignored elsewhere. It asked Brits, how do you think the BBC should be funded? A combined 52% support the BBC now either being funded through advertising or subscriptions, versus just 28% of Brits who support the license fee or the BBC being funded by general taxation. Now, you know, that shows you a majority of Brits now do not support the license fee and think the BBC should be funded by subscription and advertising. And it's a bit of a sea change, I would suggest, in terms of British public opinion on the BBC and the license fee. Why do you think this has happened so quickly?
Well, I think they're so out of touch, Michael, with what I call the honest, decent people of Middle England who ultimately have common sense. They're very fair-minded. And I think everybody can now see that the BBC isn't fair-minded, isn't impartial, and doesn't represent what they're expected to represent by these people who are very quiet. They don't criticize or they don't make a lot of noise. But the fact that a survey like that shows this, and if anything exemplified it, it was the BBC coverage of Brexit, where, you know, the fact is that 52% of the public voted for Brexit. And, you know, as I said in that article, if you'd done a poll of who at the BBC would have voted for Brexit, I don't think 52% of the BBC would have voted for Brexit. And indeed, when I was often doing interviews in you know, BBC studios during the Brexit campaign, I had people creeping up to me going, you know, I couldn't possibly say this publicly in this building because I would be vilified, but I really appreciate what you're doing for the country. And yeah, that's the kind of culture, you know, you expect in Orwell or, you know, some sort of dystopian novel. It's not something you expect from a state monopoly. And, you know, Ian Botham today was saying it's disgraceful. And again, I banged on about this, that the BBC told the government they weren't going to charge the over 75s. They now are charging them. And worse than that, they're hunting them down as if they're criminals when they don't pay the TV license with threatening letters and generally unpleasant ways of collecting the money, which old people get very nervous and very worried if they don't pay their bills, and some of them just can't afford it. So I think, you know, Lord Botham, as he now is hitting a very, very important target, and hopefully he will continue to raise this issue, because the BBC resiled on what they said to the government, and they are now going after people who spent a lot of time paying their taxes, serving their country, and they're now being mistreated. And I think that's got to stop.
Yeah, I mean, as the Express report today, Lord Botham, 65, has drafted a letter to BBC Director General Tim Davie, and last night begged his colleagues in the Lords for their support. He told them letters are being sent to individual rooms in care homes. It is also shocking how frail people are receiving demands which explicitly threaten criminal prosecution. Botham says, in my view, this is institutional bullying on a massive scale. I'm no politician, he says, but this feels like a real scandal affecting the very frail that needs sorting out.
Well, as usual, Mr. Botham has hit it out of the ground. And I think, you know, it's absolutely true. He's right. And the government needs to address it. In a sensible society, why would you, during a COVID pandemic, when people are already worried about, you know, whether or not the COVID's going to do for them, why do you then heap further pressure on them by hunting them down like criminals? I just don't understand it. But unfortunately, I do have this fear that the Westminster bubble, as I call it, it might protest about the BBC, and it might say, you know, they don't like the BBC and the way it's become no longer impartial. But actually, it serves them. It's still part of the establishment. It is still, if you like, an establishment apparatchik, which can be manipulated in the end to the benefit of this little power bubble that we've got that's now running the country. So I think it's a huge opportunity for GB News. Andrew Neil, nobody knows the BBC better than Andrew Neil. And I think I want to see, and they're a free market instrument, I'd like them to be doing what the BBC should be doing and giving us impartial news, interesting debate, all the things that we need to be making up our own minds, which is ultimately, we want a country, don't we, where we aren't told and believe everything. We want to be given the facts and allowed to decide for ourselves. That's the essence of what made Britain great. That's the essence of what Parliament is, you know, debate and discussion. That's what we're not getting now, you know.
Finally, Rupert, you know, if GB News launches and is successful, how do you think that affects the BBC and affects the overall media landscape in this country?
Well, I think the BBC is on the slippery slide, and eventually common sense will prevail. But as always, with anything involving the state, it always takes far longer than you think. You know, it's a bit like the euro, that's on the slippery slide, but they seem to be able to continue to create misery and poverty for large parts of Europe, you know, as part of a political experiment, and it carries on and it will go on, but eventually will fail. The BBC is the same, it will fail, but it will be hastened by honest GB Newses who present things fairly, give people the facts, allow for honest debate, allow for differing opinion, which is something we don't have in our country anymore. You know, you're not allowed really to express your opinion if it's going to be considered by the metropolitan elite as offensive in any way. Well, I'm sorry, but differing opinions, in order to debate them, sometimes people have to be big enough to accept the fact it might upset a few people. So I think that's what we need, and hopefully that's what GB News will deliver. But I'm not in any way involved with GB News. I'd love to be. I think it would be a fantastic place to be, or operation to be involved with. I just hope they get the programming right and the general approach right. But I think with Andrew Neil at the head, they've got John McAndrew, who's I think who was at Sky, who's doing a lot of the editorial content. So I think they probably know what they need to do to hasten the demise of the BBC, and I'm hoping that happens.
Rupert, we'll touch base again, I think, once GB News is actually launched and see what you make of it then. But great to catch up with you, and I'm sure we'll chat again soon. Rupert Lowe, thanks for joining me today.
Michael, thanks for having me on. Okay.